A lot of requests for this one. Glad you guys are here. Like and subscribe. I'm James. It's my new lower third on the bottom. We've been working on a bunch of new things here with Final Cut and learning motion graphics. So it's going to be a fun year. We're going to make some fun videos. All right. So, links are in the description. Today's episode 6 is Kemper versus real amps. A lot of people have been asking me about this, so here it is. So as you guys know, I'm kind of an old school amp guy, a lot of Marshalls and Diesels and Wagners and AC30s, and I still love those amps, but I also love Kemper. So we're going to kind of talk for a few minutes here about Kemper versus amps, kind of versus Axe effects too. We're going to throw a little Axe effects in the corner there. When I first moved here, which was a little over 2 years ago, I kind of started to realize, like, man, everybody wants everything really, really fast here, and not a lot of guitar players were coming in and doing anything with any different sounds. A lot of them just literally were bringing in a deluxe reverb, and that was it. So I work over at this record label on the west side, and this dude brought in a Kemper. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, he was able to get like a lot of different sounds, and I ran him. I think I ran him like DI right into the converter or something. But it started the journey, and basically I hit up some friends. I hit up a couple guys with Kempers, and they brought them over, and I was kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, one of the guys had just bought it, and all he had was what's I think was known as Rig Exchange, which is like the, you know, it's a bundle of free profiles that you get with the amp, and most of them were really terrible, to be totally honest with you. Some were like not terrible, and that was about it. Like, nothing was like, wow, this is great. And I remember playing with it for a while, and I was like, I don't know. My assistant brought over Axe effects. That was not for me. Just because the way it functioned, and it looked like a rolling keyboard, like with the LED light out, or, you know, the readout screen, and it looked like an old school like drum machine to me. The Kemper was definitely more me. I mean, it kind of just looked like a JCM 800. But like I said, I wasn't really hot on the sounds, and I was still researching it and listening to clips online. And I remember the guy that originally, one of the original things that made me go, I want to get this, was there's this dude named Bert Moulendijk. I always say his name stupid like that, I'm sorry. Bert Moulendijk, he's a profile dude from Holland, and he's a really good guitar player too, and he's a super nice guy, and he's got a good sense of humor. He doesn't get mad when I go Bert Moulendijk, right, Chunky? The dog is here, but I remember, like, one night I was like, I pretty much had reserved myself to, like, I don't think I'm going to get this thing. It's not happening. And I listened to his demo of, like, his profiles of him playing, and it's killer, man. I was like, oh man, I got to give it a shot. And I know a lot of people had said, listen, man, you got to get the nice, you know, profiles from guys like Bert and Chop Tones and Top Jimmy and, you know, Michael Britt and all these guys. So I said, all right, I'll pull the trigger. I got it. And yeah, man, I fired it up. Just plug it in, play. It was real simple. I guess you have to download the rig manager or whatever, but it was pretty relatively easy, which is good for me. I'm not the best at reading instruction manuals, but I started the journey of learning it. Basically, what I did the first day is the way I still run it. I disable everything. I disable all effects. I disable all the noise gates. I disable all the compression. I just want a raw, dry amp because I've got my pedal board with delays and choruses and flangers and, EQs and, reverbs and stuff on here. So I didn't want that because I was already confused. Like, I didn't know how to use it, and I didn't I started hearing those delays, and I don't know, it sounded like a Line 6 to me. I just didn't dig it. I'm not really the biggest fan of like too many delays in the loop. Sometimes it just sounds kind of 80s to me. So anyway, I just disabled everything. Now there are guys that are using the Kemper with all their inboard effects, and it's really great. One guy came over and was showing me some stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Can we just go back to the way I had it set up? I don't know why, just because I just liked it as a dry amp. I don't know. Maybe I'll evolve. But then I started getting some profiles, and I was like, this thing sounds really nice. And I still have amps. I've still got, a gorgeous AC30. That's a JCM 800 modded by Mark Cameron. I've got a 77. I don't know are they in the frame? Oh yeah, they are. They're back there. And I've got a 77 unmodded 50 watt. So yeah, so I start messing with this thing, and yeah, it's cool. It sounds really good. The key is to get the good profiles. The profiles that come with that rig exchange and the generic ones are not really good, except for a couple of guys. Synmix has some nice ones on there, and he was actually one of the reasons I got it, because I remember hearing one of his profiles, and I was like, oh, and this was when I was demoing it with this dude, and I was like, okay, these are cool. And I've since bought a bunch of Synmix profiles. And the other thing too, don't steal people's profiles, man. Bo, don't steal people's profiles, man. That's not cool. One time, my friend wanted to find out, he wanted to buy, he was looking at Michael Britt, Chop Tones, Burt Muhlendyk, all these guys. So I put together a little best of, like, my 10 favorite high gain, and I sent him the profiles, and I said, but listen, man, and he was cool. I said, if there's one that you like, buy it. Buy from that manufacturer, because that's not cool. These guys, they work hard. I mean, this is yeah. So anyway, let's see. So yeah, so then I started really digging in, and like I said, I bought everything by Burt Muhlendyk. I bought everything by Michael Britt. There's another guy, Guido, who I got introduced to him through his Vendra. It's like his Fender Deluxe. It's really nice. Guido Birkenstock, some weird, I don't know he's like Italian or something. Guido, right? But then he has like a VH4 that's really cool too. So he's really good. Chop Tones is good. Tonehawk is good. There's a whole bunch of them that are really good. And the thing that's weird, well, I don't want to say it's weird. The thing that I realized on some of them was that I felt that, so I'm a Marshall guy, right? I grew up on Marshalls, Jubilees and JMPs and 800s and, DSL 2000s, all that stuff. I was always a Marshall guy, but was always like trying to make the Mesa Boogie thing happen, because I'd hear like the guitar player in Limp Bizkit or Korn or Avril Lavigne or whatever, Nickelback, and I'd always be like, man, those guitars just sound killer. And then like every time I got a rectifier, I don't know, I never, I got better. I'll put it this way: I'm friends with John from Mesa Boogie, and he got me into getting the 10-band MXR EQ, cutting 500, putting that in the loop of, I think, my triple. I had a Rev G triple at the time, and backing down the gain, but opening this up. And then what I was doing was I was backing down the gain to about 5.5, and I was putting an OCD or a Maxon tube screamer in front of it, just cracking it, using the oversized cabinet versus the traditional versus the Marshall versus the Greenback Vintage 30s, utilizing the combination of SM57 and a 421, and where you put it is, to me, getting Mesa Boogies to sound great in the studio is a science, to me. Marshalls are so easy, just, don't mess it up, and they sound great. Mesa Boogies are super touchy to me. But then there's these guys that are getting these amazing sounds, right? I mean, you listen to, the Nickelback Dark Horse or whatever. I mean, those guitars are just ridiculous. So it's there. It's just, I felt like I got better at it. My point is that I remember when I think it was Chop Tones Mesa Boogie, and I started to play it, and I was like, good Lord. This is like better than anything. This is better than I've ever recorded it. So I don't know if that says anything. Anyway, let's see. You need to get the good profiles. Where else are you gonna have like $200,000-$300,000 in amps, right? For like $2,000, and you spend $500 on profiles for $2,500. You've got all this stuff. I also like to blend it with the amps, and that kind of is an art in itself, because you have to check not only phase alignment with the peak transient, but polarity. So a lot of times, like I'll run a 57 and a 421 in front of my Marshall. I split the signal. One goes into the Marshall, one goes into the Kemper. And then I record the Kemper in stereo. I go straight out the back of the XLR. Somebody asked me to talk about that. I don't do SPDIF or anything like that. I just go out the back XLR into my Burl B2 Bomber. So I always record the Kemper at straight into the converter. The other thing too, you have to on the master volume on the Kemper, you always have to turn it up, because for some reason I've noticed a lot of these Sims, they export, or they spit out the sound at a very low volume. I think Axe Effects was kind of similar too, very very minimal. So I crank it so I get a little mojo from my Burl B2s, which doesn't hurt. Those things sound killer. But I like to blend it with amps, but you have to really make sure that you're getting the phase lined up, meaning the peak transients line up, and polarity, because a lot of times the amp will go up and then down, like if you look at the peak transient, but then you look at the Kemper and it goes down and then up, and then you've got to, flip phase at the, usually I think I flip phase right at the preamps of the amp, like the Neves that are preamping the 57 and the 421. So what I'll do is, the way I do it is I have a 57 and a 421 in front of my Mesa Boogie cabinet with greenbacks, and I get that where I like it, and I run that into two audio channels, and I get those phased up where the peak transients line up sample accurate. I get the sound I want. If I want the amp a little less bright, or let's say I want the amp a little brighter, I move it into the center dust cap. If I want it a little warmer, a little softer maybe, I move it out from the center dust cap. Get that nice vibe between the 57 and the 421. Get them phase aligned, make sure polarity is good. Then what I do is I blow those tracks out and I bring in two auxes, and then I bust those over to one mono audio track. So I'm multing or committing to the guitar sound of that, so I can blend it on the faders in Pro Tools. If I decide I want a little more 421 for this song, or for this part I want a little more 57, I can blend it, and then it records that blend. So then I have a single mono audio track with my guitar amp, and then I have next to that a stereo track of my Kemper, because I'm coming out XLR left and right. Then what I do is I'll do the tick tick, and I'll run a signal through it, and if I'm reamping, a lot of times I'll throw like a click through it, just click, just to get like the actual path. So the click would then go, or the tick would then go through the amp and through the Kemper. It would record, and then I would look at it. And a lot of times, most of the times, the amp, let's say if you're looking at it, I don't know how you're looking at it backwards, right? The amp comes up here, and the peak transient's here. The Kemper may be here. There is latency with the Kemper slightly, because it's obviously digital. So then at that point, I would throw a I'd figure out the samples. So you basically highlight it. You highlight from the peak transient and drag across to the peak transient of the other one, which gives you the differential. And then you go up in Pro Tools to the second counter down, there's two counters. The second counter, set it to samples, and then on the right next to it there, it'll tell you how many samples a part of it is, like if it's 90 or 114 or whatever. Then what I do is I put a DSP plugin of Time Adjuster on the amp track, and I knock it back that many samples. And that then will knock that amp that's ahead back. And I mean, you can physically move the Kemper forward. It doesn't matter. You can't hear it. It's like, you know, not even the blink of an eye. And it doesn't feel bad, you know, and I'm a nerd. I'm a guitar dude. So, you know, if it felt latency E, I would tell you it does not. It feels fine. And that's it. And then also check polarity, because the amp may be going up, the Kemper may be going down, and then you would just make your adjustments. Now the thing too is that I would check it when you switch profiles real quick. It only takes a second. Just because different profiles react differently within the Kemper. I think some of them are more sophisticated than others and maybe have a hair more latency, or maybe speaker excursion is different and it goes down instead of up. So anyway, just check it. And then you just line them up and it sounds great. And I really like blending them because there's something beautiful and warm, and there's a rotundness to the sound that I get in my booth with the amps. And then there's also a really nice thing going on with the Kemper, and it's a little different. The Kemper has a more direct, immediate kind of feel. I don't want to say flatter or flatness, but it's got like a hardness to it, where the amp has a little more cuddliness to it sometimes. Even aggressive amps feel a little cuddlier when I'm miking them as opposed to sometimes the Kemper. So I can blend it. You know, I can get this like warmer, kind of bigger amp thing with a more intense Kemper thing. And you're hearing the Kemper on records now. You can hear it, man. It's everywhere. It is everywhere. They are selling these things like hotcakes. Do they really sell a lot of hotcakes? But anyway, let's see. I'm going to look through this. Oh, and then somebody just asked me, talk about reamping with the Kemper. It's real simple, just like anything. I mean, I'll take my DI guitar, I will output it mono, out one of my outs, and it'll come straight out of my patch bay. And then I have a TT to XLR, and then I go straight into my the Little Labs Red Eye, 3D Red Eye or whatever it's called. This is Reamp DI box. It's great. The thing that's nice about the Ready too is that it's got like volume controls, gain controls, because that's the thing. Sometimes I'm not really the biggest fan of reamping all the time, because the results are always like, sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're not so cool. If a person doesn't play into a sound, the feel can be weird. You can be playing too hard for the amp or too soft for the amp. You could be sagging in an incorrect way. It doesn't feel right. Where if he was in front of the amp, he probably would be grinding a little bit differently. But with the saturation or like the gain knob on the Little Labs Ready, I'm able to really kind of bring the guitar player into the track better. It feels to me anyway. And that's it. And then I just run. Usually what I'll do is I'll run. Actually, no, I run out of the Ready, and I'll go straight into my pedal board. And then out of the pedal board, I split. One goes into the Kemper, one goes into the amp. So I'll do the same thing. I'll reamp with the whole live amp and Kemper at the same time. And what I'll do, if I'm not playing and I'm just doing reamping, is when I get everything set up and it's all working, I will then run a click through. Click, you know, so then the click goes out of Pro Tools, goes into my pedal board, goes to both of them, and it's recorded, and then I use that click to do my phase alignment and my polarity. And don't skimp there. You've got to make sure you get this stuff nice. Get it tight sounding, as it'll in the end it'll be way better, especially when you go to mix it and you start adding tracks and stacking guitars. If you've got phase issues with one track and then you have 6 of those, now you've got like built-in flanger. So just take your time with it. Though sometimes a little out of phase sounds cool too, so use your ears. I don't know. For the most part, I usually just go in phase because you can always knock it out of phase. That's easy. All right, so what else? Well, I guess you can if you're multing them. Who knows? Oh, what are some of my favorites? I already talked about that. Bert Muhlendyk, Michael Britt, Guido, Synmix is great. Chop Tones, Tone Hawk. There's a whole bunch of them. Anybody wants to contact me. And actually, if you go into my... Also like and subscribe. And say something nice. No, just kidding. Go into my video library, and there's a couple of Kemper high gain shootouts and a couple of Kemper things like this year. So they're only like maybe 8, 10, 12, 15 videos down. You'll see them. You'll just go through it and you'll see it. And it goes through the different... I think I just did a high gain one because I have a folder still in my rig manager. All right. Directness. I have videos on Kemper. Great community. The other thing that's nice about Kemper is it's a great community. A lot of people have Kempers. They're into it. The Kemper Facebook group is the one to go for. The forum is not so hot. It seems like that just seems to be the way it is now, But the Facebook group is hot, and you can get help like that. And Kempers are really basically easy. You just Google it. I mean, a million people have them, so there's solutions everywhere. You can YouTube video any problem you have, how to shut off effects, how to shut off effects in a Kemper, and click, and there it is. So very easy, very good community. I think that's it, man. I am really focused. Yeah. So we got a whole new thing going on here. I got a new logo. Look at that. See it? Yep, there it is. I'm learning Motion 5, which is like Apple's version of After Effects, like motion graphics, and I'll put it in here. I made a little lower third, like a little animated or motion-oriented lower third, which is where it says the name of the person. I'll put it again down now. And I don't know, I can't think what else. That's kind of the highlight of the whole thing. I've really been digging into learning Final Cut, and I think Ricky Rocket hit me up today and asked me how I was doing with it, which was really weird. He must know me from one of the Facebook camera groups, because he hit me, and it was him. Like, I looked it up, I'm like, oh my god, that's legit Ricky Rocket, I think. It seemed like it. I don't know. Anyway. But you want to say goodbye, Bo? Come on. Come on. What do you think? Do you like the Kemper better or the Marshall? What'd you say? You said line 6? That's not my dog. Who uses a line 6 and gets a good, and he reamps it, is that dude Michael Romeo or whatever from Symphony X. That's the thing I've learned about guitar sounds. I've heard guys get such great guitar sounds with equipment that not only do I hate, but I've never had luck with. And then you hear them use it, and it's like, I remember, I could never get a Bogner Ecstasy happening, man. I had one, I sold it to Greg Wells, the producer. I could never get the Bogner Ecstasy happening, man. And then you hear guys with Bogner Ecstasies on their record, and it sounds fantastic. So, you got to find what works. Anyway, links are in the description. Like and subscribe. This, I guess, is about the last video of the year. I'm going to be traveling the next few weeks, so I'm going to do some videos in LA and have some fun with it. But when I get back on the 15th of January, 2018, this site is going to start blowing up. We're going to get very serious about things. We're working with some new photographers and graphic artists. And right, Bo? That's my buddy. I know. I love you, too. I know. What's it like loving on me? Oh, I know. That's this chunky monkey. Look. Look, there's the camera. I took his collar off because he sits there and scratches and rattles while I'm trying to make movies. All right. Say goodbye. Bye. You're a chunky monkey. Whoa. You're a chunky monkey. He's a lucky dog. I'm a lucky person. Together, we're super lucky. Oh, man, you got hair all over me.